Hey, everybody. We have got a packed Thursday show for you today. It's a short week, so we have to give you like a double length show.
All right. Yes, the Obi-Wan series finale is tremendous, and we're going to talk about it all. You can skip ahead if you haven't seen the finale yet and go to the other great content in the episode. But Lon Harris is back with us to discuss, what this means for streaming and the episode itself. Very satisfying for me. Very
satisfying conversation. And again, there's still lots of other content coming up. We're going to do a quick news hit on the FDA taking action against Juul. And then I've got an interview with a Series C healthcare CEO. They say it can't be done, but he's trying to disrupt drug prices.
Yes, this is AJ from Capital RX, laser focused on transparency and prescription drug pricing, like the Mark Cuban company, which we'll also have on the show at some point. And just, great to see founders doing the right thing, especially with this news of Juul, which did the wrong thing for a decade.
Definitely. It's really interesting because we have that news and then a CEO who quite specifically is saying, I'm not taking the dirty money. That's the money we're never going to take. It's going to be a great show.
All right, stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by BairesDev. Hiring a team of experienced developers doesn't need to be hard, slow, expensive, or risky. Go to baires.dev/twist and schedule a 20-minute chat to get a development team you'll love and get $10,000 off when you sign your first contract. Thorne. Thorne empowers people to take control of their long-term well-being with a proactive, science-based approach to health. Through a variety of at-home tests, Thorne teaches you about what your body needs and provides the right, high-quality, certified nutritional supplements for you. To get started and take 10% off your first order, head to thorne.com/u/twist. And AdQuick. If most of your advertising dollars are going to digital ads, it's time to diversify. Out-of-home advertising like billboards offers a low-cost, high-value reach. AdQuick makes it easy to plan, buy, and measure all in one place. Visit adquick.com/twist and mention Twist to get $1,000 off your first campaign.
All right, everybody. Everybody's favorite day of the week is here. It's Thursday. Thursdays when we have Lon Harris on. He's LONS on Twitter. He does inside.com/streaming and does a couple of other projects. Where else can people find you, Lon Harris?
Oh, there's I do a podcast with Hal Rudnick where we talk about streaming shows every week. That's called Binge Boys. It's on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And
Binge Boys.
I'm Binge Boys, that's right. And I write for Honest Trailers on Screen Junkies. That's the big YouTube Honest Trailer show. You can find that at Honest Trailers or go to Fandom Entertainment. And that's where we do the weekly Honest Trailer commentaries, where I give my thoughts and opinions and review of whatever we did the Honest Trailer on. That week, it was the Halo series we did this week, the Showtime, Paramount Plus
I didn't get to finish it. Again, we are drowning in streaming.
I really liked that. Yeah.
My Lord. You know what? That's it. I'm a new thing for my team members.
No more weekends.
No, we're now going to have everybody do time blocking for streaming. I want to see how much you people are streaming.
We're going to have to.
There's a lot of streaming going on. Can you imagine if they counted the hours of streaming we're all doing?
2.5 months, I think, to finish the Halo series, but I liked it. I mean, I'm like a child when it comes to entertainment. My needs are very simple.
Blow stuff up.
Yeah. But I thought it was surprisingly good.
I think a lot of us were expecting a little more action. A lot of the fans were annoyed that it doesn't follow the plot of the games. I don't mind that so much, but it felt like a lot of brooding, it was pretty ponderous.
Actually,
and I want more Spartans running around shooting aliens,
I think, you know what? You're totally right, because it took me 2.5 months to finish it. And the first few months was episodes 1 through 5, which I was like, ugh.
It's kind
of a
slog,
6 and episode 9 are basically the video game. And you're like, yes.
Yeah, I want the shooty.
That's probably why I'm left with a positive feeling, because
less talk. Yeah.
Less feelings.
Right. Well, let's get into Obi-Wan here. This is and of course, this is going to be filled with spoilers. You can just look at your podcast player in the show notes and go ahead. If you're on youtube.com/thisweekin, if you look in the summary, you hit that down caret, you can open up the summary, the description of the video, and we put timestamps. So you can just go to the next timestamp.
There you go. So if you're that one guy on Twitter who's like, don't talk about Star Wars because I don't like it, we solved it for you.
Molly, I don't know if you saw the new device, Molly, but people want to talk about the weekly show. So what they do now is they say, Obi-Wan spoilers below, and then they do a dot, each with a new line. And then after about 10 dots down, so you have to open up the tweet, basically.
Yeah, that's super smart. I just saw that today.
Also
super
good
smart.
for engagement. I think that's how you break the algorithm, is if people open up your tweet, they're more likely to like it and
engage. Yeah.
I think you get more engagement. Anyway, episode 6 happened.
The finale.
That's it. And I think it feels like Ewan is on the internet this week saying he wants to do more, maybe a season 2, but this felt very like a final note to me.
Yeah,
I don't want to felt that way. This felt like this was like a cherry on top, just chef's kiss.
This seamlessly moves you into A New Hope. We've got everything in place. He's found Qui-Gon. They're going through the canyon to his new cave home where Luke will find him. It just seems like what more is there to do? This leaves it on just a perfect like grace note.
Which you could also be said for Rogue One, which seamlessly, literally frame by frame, connects to it. So,
well, and we know we have Andor coming up, which is 24 episodes, 2 seasons, and it's the whole formation of the Rebel Alliance. So my bet would be some of the characters that we've met, O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Roken, Kumail Nanjiani as Haja. I feel like a lot of these faces might come up again because we're going to see the path get integrated into the Rebel Alliance.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy Smith's Bail Organa. Mm-hmm. So it's
all these figures are now like in play because they've created the immediate, like the proto rebellion.
In the black suit, Darth Vader.
I love that. That was just to take that moment where they had him refer to him as Darth, which is kind of a retcon thing, because when Lucas wrote A New Hope and has Obi-Wan Kenobi refer to Darth Vader as just Darth, he didn't know that the standard would be all Sith Lords have a Darth and then their name, like Darth Sidious, Darth Plagueis, Darth,
Right. That it's a title, not a name.
Alec Guinness, probably, the actor, didn't realize Darth was a title, thought it was just his name. And so he refers to him like, well, hello, Darth. And so having Ewan McGregor do that here makes it a bit that he's doing instead of he doesn't know that his first name isn't Darth.
That's actually delightful, especially because it was such a kind of sweetly awkward delivery. Like he's like, okay, Darth. I guess that's your new name now.
Now it's a dig. Now it's a dig.
Yes, you're just dark. You're just another generic Sith.
I killed Anakin Skywalker. I'm Darth Vader now. He's like, well, hello, Darth. It's almost a joke at his expense now, which I like. It recreates that moment in A New Hope. It's like, oh, he knows what he's saying.
I'm watching so many YouTube videos of people's reaction to this show and everything, and I got an Alec Guinness on his yacht talking about Star Wars in like 87 or something. It's a great video.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I just kept turning the pages. It was great. I mean, the dialogue it needed work. I mean, it was not pleasant. And he's like, somebody writes in the comments, like, did you know he had like points in this? And then somebody, they're jumping off at links to another video where somebody says, you had 3 points of the gross, and Star Wars says, well, not that much. And it was clear Alec Guinness had made points on the gross of this thing and made many, many, many millions of dollars for a part he did not want to do, basically, or was, and he said he punched up the dialogue.
At that point in his career, I mean, we're talking about a Shakespearean actor, like one 60s. Of the world's most, regaled, celebrated actors. And this was a point in Hollywood where it was more common for that to happen. Like, you'd be celebrated in your own country, but if you wanted a paycheck, you could go, even in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where DiCaprio goes to Italy to make some schlock for a few years. Like, that was more common in those days. It wasn't as much of an international film business. So for Guinness, this was like, oh, I'll go to America and make this schlocky genre thing, and then I'll come back and we'll do, Lear.
All right, let's get right into it.
All right, so a little recap. You got our 2 storylines converging. Reva is horribly wounded after being, we think, once again stabbed with a lightsaber, but too angry to die, as one review put it.
Mm-hmm.
Arrives on Tatooine to try to find Luke. Vader, meanwhile, is chasing Obi-Wan in the path, and Obi-Wan leaves the ship so that the path can escape, and Vader will chase him. And then they land on this sort of like nearby planet, which to me was reminiscent of the little canyon that Luke walks through to sort of explore his dark side
questions. On Dagobah.
On Dagobah,
Yeah.
like I thought it had a similar look to that sort of Dagobah dark forest that Luke walks through. But anyway, they have a super cool lightsaber fight. Obi-Wan regains all of his Jedi powers through the course of it. There's, of course, that, in the awesome TV arc thing, a moment when everyone seems beaten and then the good guys fight back. And then you see, actually, which is kind of lovely, Owen and Beru, like, as Beru in particular, just be like a badass. Like, we're going to fight for this kid and we're going to, get our guns out. And so they have a fight. She almost kills Luke. Reva almost kills Luke with the lightsaber when he's knocked unconscious. And doesn't, rediscovers her own good side of the Force. And everything is just wrapped up in a delightful, tidy, lovely little bow. And now we're ready for New Hope.
All right, listen, great startup outcomes are almost always coming from, you guessed it, great developers. But here's the problem. Hiring full-time engineers is expensive and time-consuming. We all know this. So you need to check out BairesDev. They provide Silicon Valley level engineering talent on demand. And we're not talking about a single developer, but a team of highly qualified engineers. BairesDev is focused on later stage startups and larger companies. And they handle all the annoying stuff like payroll and benefits. They can have engineering ready for you in under 3 days. Their devs speak fluent English and they're in the same time zone as you. And these devs are not just good, they're great. BairesDev screens and vets over 1.3 million applicants every year, and they only pick the top 1% to work with. That's why they have a 91 NPS score, and they have over 460 active clients, including several Fortune 500 companies. So I want you to go to baires.dev/twist. Now listen, I got to spell this for you. BAIRES.dev/twist to book an intro call and get $10,000 off when you sign your first contract. That's right, $10,000 off. Lon, favorite scene in this episode? I think I could guess.
Oh, wow.
There are two really poignant ones.
I mean, I love the lightsaber fight is great. You actually predicted the helmet, forehead scalp slash moment where he breaks open the helmet, that recalls a moment from, I believe it's a Star Wars Rebels where Ahsoka
does the same thing.
Darth Vader's helmet open, and we get like a little strip of Anakin's face. I love the way they did that in this, how we would go back from Hayden Christensen's voice to James Earl Jones's voice box, and it was really that
super cool.
Both of them in one body kind of moment. I thought that was really well done and cool. And then it was really delightful to see Qui-Gon show up again at the end. Well, Liam Neeson.
For your generation, especially, you're a little younger than me.
I'm sure for the prequel kids, it's very cool. I was already in college when Phantom Menace came out. So it's just nice how it ties it all together.
Yes.
With the old show. I feel like in some way, this and Mandalorian, I like both shows very much, but they're almost like opposite value propositions. Mandalorian it's this action show. It's episodic. It's like, we're going to open up this whole new little corner of the Star Wars world and just do a fun little adventure in it. And then this was really like, the fun of this show was tying all these threads together and making it feel like we're really bridging the gap between the prequels and the original trilogy.
Is the main point, Molly. This is episode 3.5.
Exactly, yeah.
They created episode 3.5 because a lot happens between Anakin being defeated on Mustafar in Revenge of the Sith and Obi-Wan, lowering his lightsaber to be turned, essentially opting into becoming a Force ghost. Nobody understands what happens in that scene. It's like, oh my God, he just disappeared. He's a ghost when Darth Vader strikes down old man Obi-Wan. But now you understand why Obi-Wan did that. He had defeated Darth Vader on Mustafar and on this new planet. He couldn't kill him both times. He had so much love for him, he could not kill Anakin. He walked away both times from absolutely trouncing him. In one, he cut off 3 of his legs. In this one, he slices his skull in half and his back. He got a shot in his back and could have killed him both times. He couldn't kill his friend. And his friend was so filled with rage in the final instance, in A New Hope, he lowers the lightsaber and says, I'm not going to even try to kill you. You can kill me. I'm gone anyway. I'm moving on and we're going to have a bigger purpose here. Yeah. And I guess that's what he learns from Qui-Gon when he goes to the desert is there's a bigger purpose here. You can move on And there's something about Jedi moving on to this, Force Ghost.
Well, we sort of see it's a similar beat with Luke at the end of Last Jedi, where some people read it as the amount of concentration he required to project himself to Crate from where he was meditating on Octo, I believe was the name of that planet. So you could read that as, well, it's the energy he had to expend. That's what killed him. But he does just he just disappears. He just becomes one with the Force. Yeah.
This is good, Molly.
The Noties are having a debate that I also wondered about, which is this question of why Reva would, because it's not clear in episode 5 whether she realizes that Luke is Vader's son.
Oh no, she knows it.
So she knows it, and
he says something about the kids. He said, because I rewatched that scene. He says in the recap, his kids. We have to go check on his kids. So that's when she, with that little device, realized it's Vader's kids.
I think she figures out.
And so then she goes to answer the question of what people are asking, which is then why would she go kill Luke? It's to get revenge on Vader.
And I think the idea
having slaughtered all the younglings.
And I see people are commenting, but Vader doesn't know about Luke. It's like, well, she would tell it like that. We've already established that Reva loves to dangle lurid information over people. That would be her revenge. She would go tell Darth Vader, you had a son and I killed him.
Or even better, I mean, she's walking back with what you think might be a dead Luke Skywalker, which obviously doesn't make any sense unless they were going alternate universe with this episode.
Yeah, we kind of know. I think by that
we know he's not dead, but he looks pretty dead. I mean, imagine I think we
figured it out.
Imagine she brings young Luke Skywalker's 10-year-old body to Darth Vader.
Exactly.
Here's your son. I killed him just like you killed my friends. I mean,
just
it's
like she
dark.
delighted in being the one who gets to tell Obi-Wan Anakin is still alive and he's Darth Vader. She would that would be part of her delicious revenge, would be telling him about it.
I have to say, like, both of these lightsaber battles now they're so amazing, because the lightsaber battle that occurred in Revenge of the Sith was a great lightsaber battle, on Mustafar. You thought, like, hey, this is peak Jedi. And now you see something different. That was peak Jedi fighting each other, but now you have peak Sith Lord and peak, Jedi fighting each other, and, all this fabric between them. So I thought that was like choreographed amazingly. Reva's character arc, amazing. Turns out to be amazing, to be I thought it was a satisfying character arc, because you have to have something else in there, I guess. It can't just all be
heartbreaking and kind of, Yeah.
I thought a better ending would have been for Obi-Wan after she goes to see Leia, to get back in the ship, and Reva's in the ship.
I thought that was going to happen for sure. I was waiting for it. Like, yay!
He delivers her to complete her Jedi training.
Yes.
To Dagobah. That would have been, for me, the most satisfying.
That would have been.
He goes to see Yoda, and Yoda says, too old to complete the training. She is. Or he then trains her, and it's just her sitting there. What do you think? You like?
I was hoping for that. I was really hoping for that.
You like that?
I think they're only not putting that bow on it because it's probably still being decided what they're doing with her, or they're going to pick. I don't think she's gone for good.
Her becoming a Jedi would be next level. Completing her Jedi training would be incredible. I
don't think a lot of these dangling threads that we've been left with are going to just be left dangling for too long. I think we're obviously seeing, Quinlan. Quinlan was here. Like, all of these little things that we've set up. Who are those dead Jedi in amber that are being preserved? What we never got an answer there. All those things are being set up for a future show, a future movie. They're going to pick all these threads.
I mean, I will say, I also thought that was going to happen, that Reva was going to be in the ship. And I was like, you should take her and train her and whatever. And also I was like, you should do that for safety purposes, because she now knows that Luke is here. Like, I was like, I watched enough action movies that I had a moment of wondering, like, is Obi-Wan just going to heartbreakingly now have to kill her because she knows this big secret?
He's not doing a very good job.
To me, it would have been better security to bring her to be trained as a Jedi.
Not the way.
Yeah, but then make sure she's like okay and taken care of, instead of just like, okay, peace out. I see you have a big owie.
I think they let that go for another time. Like, they can do a little flashback scene, which is like one of the things Star Wars is good at, is not filling in all the gaps and let your imagination run wild. Yeah. Like, what were the Clone Wars like? Oh, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars. We waited 20 years to find out what the Clone Wars were like, right? So there was another great scene. So number one scene for me was the speech and the discussion. I'll pull up the copy of it in a second. between Anakin and Luke, because he says, I killed Vader. It's not your fault. I killed Anakin.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. The modulation of the voice, incredible scene, taken directly from Rebels when Ashoka battles Darth Vader and cracks his skull open. So and then also as we talked about in the penultimate episode, when he pulls down the ship, there's a video game scene where he pulls down a Star Destroyer. But I have to say, I got incredibly emotional. I don't want to admit this, but I got very emotional. I'm not going to say I cried like Molly does. But when he says, I'm sorry, Anakin, for everything. And then he says, I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. That scene was incredibly moving to me. And I just thought, my God, they've written dialogue that is actually not terrible for Star Wars now. Like this actual dialogue to me, and Lon, I don't know if you noticed it, but they're really working on the dialogue to, it's quippy. Like, the original Star Wars series had some good quips in it, but they're actually making more poignant dialogue. This has to be something they're consciously doing, right?
I don't know if you noticed, some of these episodes had the name Stuart Beatty in the credit, like story by or written by. He's a Hollywood screenwriter. He wrote Collateral. He wrote some of the Pirates of the Caribbean films. He was the one who had originally written the original version of this, which was the movie. So this was originally going to be a movie. Then they were like, no, forget that. We're going to make a 6-episode show out of it. That guy, Hossein Amini, who you see in the credits, he was the guy who turned it into a 6-episode show. And then from there, they rewrote it to make it less like The Mandalorian. And that's the version that the final people who made this show worked on. Every time you see Stuart Beatty, it means there's elements in that episode that were from the original movie. And I think this scene was the climax of the original movie. And it was probably the thing that got carried through this entire production. Like, okay, we know we want to do this big scene with Anakin and Obi-Wan facing off. And I feel like that dialogue has been set for a really long time because it was really good. And I think the whole show maybe formed itself around that scene. Because that's lovely. That was like the payoff moment. Yeah.
It was like the Goodwill Hunting. It's not your fault scene.
Again, it fixes, and I'm not saying this needed to be fixed, but it fixes a moment in the original movie.
Yes, did you kill my father?
Where Obi-Wan, there's a way to watch it where it feels almost like he's lying to Luke. He says, your father was killed by Darth Vader, and it's very misleading, if not an outright mistruth. But now it makes more sense because that's what Anakin says to him specifically.
Anakin says it himself.
He says, I killed Anakin, not
Darth Vader killed Anakin. Yeah, because that's what happens in A New Hope when he first meets him. Also, another little nitpicky thing, when Luke Skywalker doesn't know what a lightsaber is, and when he's given the lightsaber by Obi-Wan in A New Hope, he's, like it's a fantastical device.
He looks directly down the scope of it. Yeah.
Well, he's trying to figure out what it is. And they're like, well, wait a second. Luke Skywalker's never seen a lightsaber. So Reva's coming in having a lightsaber battle. They specifically, when he's leaving that bedroom to go run in the desert away from Reva, he's halfway out the window when she walks in.
Right.
He never sees the lightsaber. He never sees
it. Yeah.
The only time she
I was like, they did that quite carefully. And then he's knocked out.
He's running above her. She uses the Force to loosen the rocks underneath him as he's running, but you wouldn't necessarily see that if you were running and like rocks fell. You might just assume those rocks fell.
He does not know what the Force is. He doesn't know what a lightsaber is.
They shot around it.
It was clever, and it was specific enough to be noticeable. You were like, okay, he would, and if he saw anything, it would be like a thing with a hood, like a Tusken Raider, which is what they told him was happening.
Yeah. That the Tuskens that's a good observation.
Were on the move. Yeah,
that's also for eagle-eyed fans. The toy that Obi-Wan brings him, the T-16 Skyhopper mini model, that's in Luke's bedroom in A New Hope. That toy. So they're doing that purposefully to this is a bit of the set. This is how he got that bit of the set.
When he cracks his lightsaber in through the broken helmet. I think this is for me, this is as powerful of a scene as Revenge of the Sith, when he says, you are the chosen one. And when Darth Vader says, you've already saved me, to Luke Skywalker. These are the three scenes. And he says, Anakin, and the distorted Anakin's gone. I am what remains. I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it. And then he says, I'm not your failure. And then he says, my friend is truly dead. Goodbye, Darth. Yeah. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah, the Darth thing is,
there's a second scene I thought was incredibly powerful too, that also got me a little bit emotional, if I'm being honest. It's, and I think this is my second favorite scene from the episode, which is Obi-Wan comes back to say goodbye and bring the toy.
Right.
What's
Lola?
Lola. Bring Lola back.
Lola the droid. Yeah.
And Princess Leia, who is clearly wise beyond her years and has this force, as we've discussed, superpower that is more around communication and influence and whatever. Princess Leia Organa, you are wise, discerning, kind-hearted. These are the qualities that came from your mother, but you're also passionate and fearless, forthright. These are the gifts from your father. Both are were exceptional people who bore an exceptional daughter. I mean, the fact that he speaks so kindly about Anakin and preserves Anakin's forthrightness and fearless and passion. He still sees so much good in Anakin, which now makes so much sense for Obi-Wan. Now I start to think about this. When I think about Star Wars now, what this has done for me is, it's the story of the Skywalker family. That's what Lucas always says. To me, it's the story of Obi-Wan. It really is. Like him having to deal with this situation, to me, is an equally the lens through which he had to witness this. Him as the witness is, to me, like a very important part of Star Wars. I don't know how you feel about it, Lon.
The theme of separating Anakin and Vader and like coming to that understanding runs through the whole episode. It's really handled well. I mean, I think you could read that as why he can now see Qui-Gon. Like Qui-Gon was the one who was like, Anakin's the chosen one. We have to train the boy. He's the future. He's going to bring balance. And you could sense that Obi-Wan maybe has been holding on to a little anger about that for all this time. Like, well, you were wrong, old man. He ended up destroying everything. And now that he's made his peace with Anakin is truly gone. And, Anakin's been replaced by this other guy. Now he's ready to make his peace with Qui-Gon Jinn and re-encounter his old master. I thought that was like
it did seem like he was ready to move on. Or he was able to move on.
Qui-Gon says it specifically, like, I've been here the whole time. It was you. You're now ready to see me.
Mm-hmm.
What a year for Liam Neeson. Also popped up in Atlanta. He's showing up in all the big shows this year. There was a great episode of Atlanta where Liam Neeson does a surprise cameo.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the Liam Neeson thing they would just hold to the end. I thought when he was buried in rubble, they would do it.
They teased it throughout.
Listen, dealing with your personal health and wellness can be daunting. You're probably being bombarded by ads and you might have no idea where to start. That's why Thorne created a care system that's personalized, preventative, and holistic while still being science-backed. And if you're a high-performing founder or operator, you need to make sure you take care of your health. And that's where Thorne can help. Thorne offers at-home tests which identify where you need the most care, like a gut test that analyzes your gut microbiome, and a stress test that measures your stress hormone fluctuations. Very important to manage that stress. These tests help eliminate the guesswork for good health by providing personalized steps for how to eat, how to exercise, and what supplements you should take. Just reminded me, I got to take care of that. Then they have a range of multivitamins and supplements you can subscribe to. And Thorne is totally vertically integrated, so you're not dealing with anyone in the middle. Again, this is personalized health and wellness. To get started and take 10% off your first order, head to thorne.com/u/twist. That's THORNE.com/u/TWIST to save that 10% and let them know you came from This Week in Startups. All right, here, Molly, any other observations on the episode or things you loved or hated or?
I mean, I thought it was lovely. I thought it was the perfect wrap up to this little special movie. And I'm actually on the side of the people who say I don't, even though it was lovely and you would want to see more, I don't think we need a season 2. I thought that was just like a perfect arc to connect the series and go into New Hope, and they should leave us wanting more.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine. I think there's more. If you wanted to bring Obi-Wan back in some way, I think you could come up with, there's obviously ways to tie him in with the Mandalore story that they're also telling. I don't know. I don't think this storyline needs to continue with Obi-Wan and young Leia and his, what's going on in Tatooine. I feel like we've seen that now, and I'm ready for other stuff in this pre-rebellion, early rebellion world.
I would like, one other note. This question of how did Reva survive the second time she got hit with the lightsaber they haven't actually done, but we'll assume a back to tank or something.
It's Star
the first
Wars.
time. There in The Mandalorian, they showed Grogu at the Jedi Temple as a youngling, being like, saved and being like Reva was in the Mandalorian series, I believe. So there is a theory that he force healed Reva as they were leaving the Jedi Temple because he can force heal and saved her. That because they were always like, how did she get saved? I could see Grogu coming out and there were injured Padawan or injured younglings everywhere, and he just puts his hands on her.
Also,
like he did with
to be
other
fair,
people.
I sort of always assume, this is really dark, but I was like, well, it probably cauterizes the wound. So if
It
it's
does,
just a wound and it's not fatal,
when your
it's
hand
pretty
gets cut off by a
cauterized, so you're
lightsaber,
not
it is
bleeding to death.
cauterized,
Right.
I think that what we're seeing now is, I feel like Lucasfilm's overall strategy is starting to become clear. It's just clear out these time periods that you can then start to like seed and fertilize with stories, and then you can keep building on them over time. But like they're just setting all of this foundation for further storytelling, and all of this I think is depth. All these characters are now
I have a theory
in play in this world to cross over in other shows and make connections between all of them.
My theory is completely different. I think that this is all a setup to do the entire Clone Wars as a 100-episode series.
I mean, it may
I think
be.
You mentioned 100?
I think it could literally be like a 10-year series because there's so much that occurs. You have Anakin as a child, you have Anakin as an adult, and you just have the Senate, and you have the Clone Wars, which were incredible. So, and that could flash forward and even flash backwards. So this concept of just flashing back and forward, like they did in the series, they didn't do it too much, but they did a bunch of flashbacks, right, to the younglings in the Jedi Academy. They could basically take the Clone Wars animated series. It's a blueprint. That's probably what Ewan McGregor, and that's why Hayden and Ewan did this. They need to secure the bag. They need the bag. Neither of these individuals are in a franchise. Am I correct? Nobody's in Marvel. Nobody's got some huge payday.
I mean, like they're doing fine, but yeah, like Hayden Christensen could definitely use a big franchise role for sure.
That's true.
He's not.
He needs a hyaluronic acid and maybe like a collagen.
Yeah, he's not working as much. Ewan is fine.
But like, Ewan's fine. But I'm not worried.
I'm not worried about Ewan.
Has he had a franchise?
No, but I feel like that's by choice. That's
okay. You know what? At some point, you have to make the right choice, which is to secure the bag at all costs. He could be in a Marvel if he wanted to be, or he could do a DC if he wanted to. I don't know. It hasn't happened, so he needs to secure the bag.
He's Obi-Wan.
I know that, but he loves this role.
He's
I think they did this with the understanding, if this went well and the audience reacted to it, that Kathleen Kennedy would give them the bag to do some really juicy project.
I mean, my only caveat is I don't know if they would. I think Clone Wars itself it's very episodic. It's very like, here's what's happening on this world. Here's what's happening on this world. Here's what's going on with Mandalore. Here's what's going on with these guys. And they are already doing like the Bad Batch have their own show, and Ahsoka's getting her own show. I almost don't know if what the fans want is let's recreate these moments you already know.
The fans didn't see Clone Wars. Nobody's seen it though.
At this point, I think a lot of people
think anymore.
Nobody watches animation.
I think it's let's spin all of this stuff off.
We'll see who's right.
Cad Bane showing up in Mandalorian is the blueprint to me. It's like, how many of these characters can we ping off and have them show up over here or over there? Bring that. And it's just like what we see in Marvel, where it's like, oh, let's bring Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch together and give them a team up movie. And we'll give Hulk a cousin who gets her own show. And I think it's going to be that thing where you could just keep expanding out forever. That'd be my guess.
Molly, any guesses here?
No.
I'm buying. Based on this,
you're in deep, man. You're in deep.
I saw a guy pitch this week.
But I do think, hold on, it's my turn. But I do think that it is clear that our future will only ever be made up of Star Wars and Marvel. So your prediction of a 100-episode live-action Clone Wars makes sense from that perspective, deeply. Yes. More. All right. Well, also, I'm loving bitchy Grand Inquisitor, and I want to see more of him.
Well, he is back
so
in Rebels,
snotty.
so,
like his face when he has to sort of be quiet and not chase after the path, when he's just like,
he's like, bad decision again, Darth.
Right? Like he's just a little
talk back to Darth because he'll crush me.
Makes me laugh.
That was actually a noticeable. The Inquisitor is like a very regal character in Rebels, where he's just like, oh, we lost another ship. I guess I'll have to murder these people. He's just like a really sadistic, evil but also with like a great accent kind of character.
Jason Isaacs in the TV show. I think.
Is it? Yeah.
I believe it is.
It's pretty great. Okay, it's 2022 and digital ads are not what they used to be. Costs are increasing, attribution is less effective. We heard about that on the show, and targeting is more difficult. All of these things are headwinds against marketing spend being effective. This means marketers need to diversify their media mix, and you can do this with out-of-home, OOH, out-of-home advertising. Now, you're probably thinking, my God, how do I get on giant billboards and these beautiful painted murals? It's all so confusing. Well, AdQuick solves that problem. These kind of ads offer great reach, higher brand recall, and they have the lowest CPMs, cost per thousands, of any traditional ad type. But buying out of home is super clunky. You got to get on the phone, the data's a mess, but now there's AdQuick. AdQuick.com makes it easy to plan, buy, and measure every kind of outdoor advertising, like those giant billboards and the painted murals that everybody loves. Well, with AdQuick, you get robust data sets, fast execution, and accurate measurement across every KPI that's important to you. And AdQuick is a global player in the ad space. So here's a great offer, $1,000 off your first ad campaign at adquick.com/twist. And mention twist to get $1,000 off your first campaign. I am thinking about buying stonks now with the market correction, and I've been looking at Disney. I've always wanted to just start building a position in Disney. And this show, I don't like to give stock advice, but I just think if you can execute on this level so consistently, I think that these characters, they're going to redo, I believe, this is another prediction from Jacob, prediction 1, and I'm going to play my prediction on this series in a moment. I'm going to take my little mini victory lap here. We need to always, this is the job of the producers. You're judged based on your ability to find my previous predictions that are correct and feature them. And then any ones that are not correct, go back into the archive and retcon that and just delete them. No, but I believe they're going to do Clone Wars in some fashion. Then I believe, and I watched a video on what Lucas's actual plans were for the next 3, and he gave them the stories for the sequels.
Yes.
They didn't use them. The leaking now has that what happened in the sequels, which makes so much sense when you see Obi-Wan and how they treated Leia and made her the featured character. The person who was going to bring balance to the Force was not Luke. The person who was going to bring balance to the Force was Leia. Or, by an interpretation, Luke, then Leia bring balance to the Force because they're twins. This makes much more sense. Twins, balance, you get it? So, here's what happens. The villain was supposedly going to be Darth Maul. And Darth Maul had an apprentice. And then Leia is running the Galactic Senate and trying to get rid of all the pockets of evil. So now it's kind of the reverse. In the Star Wars series, the middle series, 4, 5, and 6, they're trying to get rid of the rebels. She's trying to get rid of the evil empire, remnants of the empire kind of situation, including Darth Maul, who wants to reconstitute it. And then she uses her power to extinguish this and bring the Jedi back. Luke becomes runs his Jedi order with Leia becomes a Jedi, and they produce a whole new crop of Jedi, and we're back to where we were at the start of the Clone Wars. But it's Princess Leia who is the featured character in that series, but of course they didn't go with his story. Does that jive with what you've read? That would be the theme of that?
I think definitely Leia having like more of a central role earlier on, and those characters being more just generally central to it, I think was a big thing that Lucas had. I've never read Duel of the Fates is the other one that they talk about, where it was like the Colin Trevorrow version instead of the J.J. Abrams version, which is out there in the world and you can read, which is a very different direction, but it's still the story
of those guys.
Rey, Kylo Ren, Finn, First Order.
If you just think about it on a money grab, the amount of money they made from the sequels, Force Awakens, yada, yada, Last Jedi, to get a second swing at bat and make them again and get all that money again, just as a marauding capitalist.
Why would you not? And that's what Disney is, which is...
Yeah.
So
all of a sudden, not exactly advice, but kind of advice.
To get 3 more and say, listen, this is because now that Marvel and DC are like, oh yeah, by the way, you could do anything you want in your universe. You just call it like an alternate timeline.
Yeah.
They could just take the alternate timeline thing and
that's
say,
not even, I mean, even Marvel didn't invent, like, Star Trek Generations was just that. Like, you want to do a Picard Kirk team up movie? Okay, there's a time rift. You could obviously do that with Star Wars. There's a force power that allows you to rewrite the past. There's a portal that they find to an alternate reality. You know, it's Star Wars.
All right. Here's my prediction from the beginning of the show. I don't know what episode this was. 1 minute. We'll see on the other side. I think they haven't explained all the scars on Darth Vader when we take the helmet off in Return of the Jedi. You know how there's a big, deep scar on his head?
Yeah.
I'm going to make another crazy prediction.
Right here.
Look at you. You've just been like waiting for me to get there. He's like, come on.
I was waiting for you to get there. You got there.
And he hits him in the head.
Here's what I think happens. I think Reva dies during this. I think it becomes like a 3 or 4 person battle where Obi-Wan or Darth Vader kills Reva. I mean, who knows? They both hate her. And then somehow Obi-Wan bests Darth Vader. Darth Vader's besting him the whole time. And he cracks his beautiful helmet, which is perfect at this point, and puts that scar on his head that eventually Luke Skywalker sees. And that's how that scar, because that scar is not coming up in the back of the tank. I looked for it.
Yeah. He's got that it's almost like an indent in his
indent in his head.
Yeah.
Well, look at this. Here it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
You're right that we don't see a pronounced wound on the top of his scalp, which could definitely.
Nope. All right, there you have it, folks. And to be honest, if you have seen Rebels, you saw possibly Ashoka did that too. I don't know if they redo that battle because it's so similar.
I mean, to be fair, he did crack his helmet open, but there wasn't a wound.
Well, we didn't see the wound. It was kind of dark, but yeah. I like how
it was probably there. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a little hard to see with bits of the helmet sort of still there.
Yeah. All right, listen, Lon, this has been great. We'll finish up the Star Trek, and then we'll find another show. Hopefully, an entrepreneurial show, or go to an entrepreneurial movie. That's the other thing I want to do.
I think there's a bunch of stuff coming up. We can figure it out.
All right, everybody follow Lon's and go to inside.com/streaming, honest trailers, yada yada. But follow him. He's good on Twitter. If you like a mixture of pop culture and far left, like
it's not that far,
dunking on people. It's sort of like the anti-sax Twitter account.
Yeah, that's how I see myself as the.
It's sort of like the light in the dark. He's kind of.
I think that's a good way to describe it.
I love your Twitter. You're great on Twitter. Twitter.com/Lons.
Agreed.
I appreciate that.
See you next time.
See you guys.
Next time. Bye-bye. All right. In other news, we'll just do a quick transition here. You may have remembered Molly. I had once again stepped in it, or I couldn't control my honest opinion about something. It comes up once in a while where I just get a little too candid. I go full J-Cal. Well, remember I went full J-Cal with the CEO of Juuls when I was at a party socially, and I told him, like, how do you sleep at night? Yada, yada. Well, he's not sleeping well at night right now.
Yeah, not at all. I was sorry. I was just basking in the, the genius of that trend. You're like, and now. Yeah, so the FDA is banning the sale of Juuls in the U.S. Other e-cigarettes flavored e-cigarettes will still be available, but apparently Juul is just, I mean, honestly, I think probably has just been too much of a bad actor, is what this ultimately comes down to. I mean, it's coming at a moment where, so many other dangers are freely available to American children that it's kind of hilarious. But sure, we don't have Juul anymore. They're protecting you from looking like a jerk on the street, at least with this one brand. But I mean, to the point that you made and the full J-Cal emotion. Yeah. You think about what you have to do to get yourself banned. And I think what you have to do is just constantly ignore every warning sign that you've ever gotten that this could happen, and just be a bad actor with respect to marketing your product to kids, to continuing to do so even after you've been told not to do so, to just they come for the children over and over. I think the way this went down too was Juuls was trying to get a path to be, they were looking for some path to make this legally clear. So they applied to sell these back in 2020. And back then the FDA had banned mint and fruit flavored vapes to try to cut down on teen vaping, only allowing tobacco and menthol flavored products. So just keep it true to the pitch that Juul and others had, which is this is a bridge off of to get you to stop smoking. You could believe that
is a true statement. Like, are Juuls safer than smoking a pack or two of cigarettes a day? I think without even, it seems that it would be without knowing the exact chemistry, but that seems plausible since one is burning and one is vaping. It does seem
tar
plausible.
in it. It's burning tar.
Yes,
this is not that. This is addictive in the nicotine sense. And there are complaints that there could be like chemicals in the actual Juul devices. But yeah, is it safer than cigarettes? Without question. So is it getting kids hooked on nicotine like even earlier? Without question.
Of course. I guess you could still get vapes, like Blue Raz and lychee or lechy. How do you pronounce lychee berry? Lechy or lychee?
Lychee.
Lychee. Ice and strawberry banana. I mean, it sounds like I'm a Joe and the Juice when I'm ordering those things. According to Time, shout out to the new owner of Time, CEO of Salesforce. Companies like Puff Bar avoided FDA regulations by using lab-made nicotine that some in the vaping industry argue the FDA can't regulate. Interesting. Despite the ban, FDA said, quote, if they didn't see clinical information that suggests there is an immediate risk to using Juul products. Despite the ban, they're saying this.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I think this is less about, there's also, I think, an order this week about demanding that cigarette makers reduce the amount of nicotine in cigarettes too. So there is like this coincides with a bit of a larger federal crackdown. But I have to be honest, I think this ban is about one company because they haven't banned vaping writ large. And there are these other companies that are making these like kid-friendly flavors and all of that. I think this is really about saying, hey, Juul, like you're not reformable.
Here's the lesson for founders. Be a good actor. Always be on the side of the consumer you're serving and on the side of society. You have to be able to tell that story. I'll give some examples in a moment. And, I think begging for forgiveness in certain verticals, as opposed to asking for permission is a mistake. And so here's the example. If you're Airbnb and you get a bunch of people who can stay cheaper, and go to, as I always talk about, like you can go on a longer vacation, or there's more options for people maybe who aren't rich to go on vacations because they get a better deal and they couldn't afford the $200 a night hotel, but they get a 3-bedroom for $200 a night. So instead of a family having 3 hotel rooms for $600 a night, you get $200 for 3 bedrooms. That family is going to, and those consumers are going to go to bat for you. Mm-hmm. And then if you're, I don't know, you're trying to make extra money and you got a, ADU in your backyard, you got an extra bedroom and you want to stay at your friend's house and rent out your apartment, and that's how you pay your rent or your mortgage. Like, okay, now you've got another constituent go back to you. Who's the constituent, Molly, here that's going to bat for Juul?
Yeah.
The only constituents you would have would be doctors. This is how I would have played it.
Yeah.
I would have worked with doctors and worked with people who had lung cancer and for people who couldn't get off of these. And I would have had a plan not to make fruity flavors and maximize profitability, but I would just plan to say, listen, here's 100% of our focus. When you come to our website, when you look at our advertising, here's all the stories of people who were smoking 2 packs a day. They moved to the vape. Here's what their lungs look like when they moved to the vape. Here's what their lungs look like now. And we hope that we have 4 products they can buy. 5 units of nicotine, 4 units, 3 units, 2 units, 1 unit, a half a unit. Mm-hmm. They can go all the way down this nice curve. And here's the plan we give them. They work with their doctor and boom.
Yeah.
Then you would have all those people saying, you know what, I was addicted to nicotine and I went from a 5 to a 4 to a 3. I'm currently a 2. I hope to get down to 0.5. Mm-hmm. And they would have this high road where they could say, look, yes, of course, people are going to steal them. And yes, we make 1 or 2 flavors that you can get that make it more delightful than smoking a cigarette. But yeah, this is not for kids.
And instead they went the exact, because that when vaping first arrived on the scene, I knew I had friends who were like, well, I'm vaping now and I feel like an idiot, but it's better than smoking and it's safer. And you could literally have created a safer but addictive product, right? Like we all tolerate caffeine in our life. Like caffeine is an addictive substance. Sugar is an addictive substance. You could have been like, yes, nicotine on its own is addictive, but it's no worse than any other stimulant and it's safer than smoking. And you could have written that into billions. And instead, they literally, Juul specifically followed the actual big tobacco playbook of get kids hooked. and keep them as your customer forever. And it's like, I don't feel sorry.
Here's what not to do. I'm going to say, don't make ads that look like this. If you're watching youtube.com/thisweekend, or shout out to our friends at Spotify for having video in their player, and iTunes, Apple Podcasts, you can search, and there's a This Week in Startups videos if you want to watch the video. But it looks like an iPad. They copied the iPod ads, and you just basically have young people, who look like they're going out to Coachella with their cool vapes and like cool design. And, and here's the New York Times story that kind of puts the nail in their coffin from back in 2020. Juul bought ads appearing on Cartoon Network and other youth sites, suit claims. So this is a lawsuit. I don't know exactly where it wound up. And who knows, this could be a case of just Juul bought ads on an ad network and those ads wound up on these places. But if you are advertising something, you can pull up the New York Times story if you want, just to show the headline there. If you are...
Nickelodeon, 17 Magazine, the Cartoon Network, and educational sites for middle school and high school students.
Yeah. So this is the question, is like, how thoughtful are you being about doing this, and you can see some of the other ads in the New York Times story where they're talking about this is the evolution, and they're showing like, an old joystick from an Atari 2600 or old brick cellular phone. If you're going to, make a product like this and you're going to break some rules, you just have to make sure you talk about storytelling with a lot of our founders, Molly. You do a little talk on storytelling. Like the storytelling here was really bad. It's like a smoking gun storytelling.
And the product market fit, right? They were like, our product market fit is teenagers. Full stop. There's no evidence otherwise.
If you have a marketing department that's making ads directed at kids, and everybody who works in government are parents and older people, or they have grandkids. This is like another pragmatic thing you have to think about as an entrepreneur. Who's going to set the rules for you? If you don't regulate yourself, you will be regulated. That's just basic rules of the road. So either you regulate yourself and you get ahead of it, or, you will be regulated. How did Airbnb regulate themselves, Molly? They put their own insurance in place. So when people said, well, what happens if somebody's room gets trashed? They said, oh, well, we have this insurance thing here. Oh, what about safety and security? They say, oh, we have a rating system. Anybody can rate anybody. Oh, how do you protect against a new person? Well, we give a warning. This person has never had anybody stay at their place. And I think they have verified photos as well. So there were all these things where you said like, well, how do you know if a hotel is safe? Well, in Airbnb, does any hotel let you post reviews if you're a verified customer on their website? That doesn't exist in the world, but it exists at Airbnb. So Airbnb could actually say, look, we have a higher rating here. Are you allowed to rate New York City or, San Francisco cab drivers? Do you even know who your cab driver was? No. Do you have minute by minute trail of, a San Francisco cab in case something horrible happened? They murdered or attacked a customer? No. But does Uber and Lyft have minute by minute of that? Yes.
Yeah.
And do you know the name of your driver? Does the driver know your name? Like, do you rate each other? That rating system gave a lot of high ground to Uber when people were talking about safety and security, as did the minute by minute GPS. So it was trackable. Because this is what would happen. People would take a cab and nobody would know what ever happened to that person. So we don't know what cab they got in. We don't know whose car they got in. They got in a cab. We didn't look at the license plate. We don't know the license number. Boom. So let's do a quick. So anyway, congratulations to society and to the people at Juul. Congratulations to society and to the people at Juul. My same message to the people at TikTok.
Yeah.
You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should take a deep look in the mirror. There are plenty of ways to make money in this world. You chose to sell your souls, to be on the wrong side of history. And I'm not going to use my previous catchphrase because it's inappropriate. But my catchphrase for these people is, now, I hope the money was worth it. I hope the money was worth it. Every night when you go to bed, if you work at Juul or TikTok, you're going to hear my voice. When your head hits the pillow, hear my voice. Hope the money was worth it. And then you got to sleep. You're going to be restless when you hear that voice. All right. Yeah. And next up on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about prescription drugs and how the United States is just getting absolutely ripped off. Molly, tell us a little bit about the interview.
Yeah, this is a great interview with a guy who is doing the opposite, basically. We get an incredible, it's AJ Loiacono, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Capital RX, just closed a $106 million Series C from B Capital and General Catalyst. And he gives us an incredible history of how drug prices in America got to the point that they're at, which is, costing people and pharmacies billions and lining all kinds of pockets, and the ways in which Capital RX and others are trying to fix that. He's also just like he's a copywriting machine. He's like, when you have the perfect market, you never have to innovate. You consolidate, and points out that 80% of pharmacy benefit manager market share is controlled by 3 companies. And that's what Capital RX is trying to disrupt. It's really interesting. And it's just a very, very cogent and slightly infuriating interview. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
And a lot of people have asked us, well, isn't Mark Cuban doing something similar? We'll have the CEO of that company on.
Yeah, and we asked him about that, and it turns out they're quite complementary. They can be each other's customers.
Can't wait. I'm going to listen right now. Enjoy, everybody.
Enjoy. All right. I am joined by AJ Loiacono, CEO of Capital RX, a pharmacy benefit manager that manages and negotiates prescription drug benefits on behalf of large organizations. They just raised a $106 million Series C led by B Capital. And the mission is to, as I understand it, increase transparency in the prescription drug process and also improve patient outcomes, which I think we can all agree sounds great. Thank you for doing this. And welcome to the show, AJ.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly.
So tell me a little bit about how this works, like sort of high level. How do drugs get paid for? Where do pharmacy benefit managers sit? And what is the role there for people who don't understand any of this?
So let's take a step back. Let's kind of compare it to something that we all understand. So let's start at the very beginning. A pharmaceutical manufacturer begins to make a pallet of drugs, and they spend an afternoon, and there's, let's just say, a pallet sitting on a loading dock. And pharmaceutical manufacturers, these could be brand manufacturers like Pfizer or Merck, or these could be generic manufacturers like Teva. And what they do is they sell to the next step in the pharmacy supply chain. So they sell to what are known as wholesalers. These are companies that you may or may not know by names of McKesson, Cardinal, and AmerisourceBergen. And they buy the inventory from the manufacturers. And their role is the kind of last mile of logistics. So their supply chain logistics is to provide medication to hospital systems as well as pharmacies. And they sell to, as I state, pharmacies and hospital systems, and they have a unit price and they sell through the supply chain. And at this point, it makes sense. We could be talking about cans of soda to sneakers at this point, coming from a manufacturer, selling to a retailer, and there's a markup. But this is where everything starts to go haywire in the United States. The next step in the supply chain is where we have insurance. So you have this in the form of carriers, as well as what are known as PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. And their job is to administrate a benefit on behalf of a payer. A payer could be anything from a municipality to a school system to an employer. It could be the federal government. And they're administrating this pharmacy benefit. And you would think it would follow the same step. There's a price of a drug. There's some sort of reasonable markup that we see, and you get a drug price. But what happens in this last step is, unfortunately, the way our system has matured over the last 25 years is all the drug prices in the United States magically disappear. So up to this point, everything has been, hey, if I make a pill for $1, I'll sell it for $1.05, and they'll sell it to $1.10. And then you think, oh, so I should get it for $1.15, some slight markup in the supply chain. But all the drug prices disappear. And so this is the problem, is that there are no drug prices because this last step in the supply chain has really been defined by what's called spread pricing. So the administrators that, these are carriers and PBMs, what they did is they said, rather than charge you a fee to administrate your benefit plan, I'll just take a little bit in the middle.
Okay.
And it sounded reasonable, like, oh, okay. But what happened is they realized that they had a right to steal effectively, because there was no limit to what you could charge. How would you ever know? There's no reference. There's no price point for a consumer other than if you could shop around, it's very difficult. There's over 130,000 what we call NDC-11 drug codes based upon different package size, different strength. And this is really, really difficult for people to understand relative price. So when you take all the pricing away and you leave someone in that last step in the supply chain, I'm administrating a benefit, I can suddenly create any price. And this is where everything goes sideways. Mm-hmm. And I never understood it because I come from pharmaceutical manufacturing. It's where I started my career off for the first 8 years of my career. And then I moved over to the payer side and I thought everything would behave the same way as I described. You make a drug, there's a markup, and you sell down the supply chain and everyone has a price. And I would read these contracts with the carriers and the PBMs and I'm like, why are there no drug prices in this agreement? And no one had a good answer for me.
Well, and to be honest, I still don't totally understand how they ended up abstracting out pricing and introducing this idea of spread. What did they like?
Yeah.
Who would allow that? That's not how buying and selling works.
Well, that's a great point. Who do you think sits on top of what we call self-insured benefits is really what we call anyone that is either what we call over 1,000 lives is a self-insured entity. So these are large Fortune 500 companies, municipalities, state workers, etc. But also it's fully insured business. This is coming under carriers, and these are small group plans or individual life plans. And so what people kind of got caught up in was the concept of free. And everybody kind of said, I like free, but no one realized free. What the price was. What was the price of free? Well, wait, they're telling me it's free, right? It's free.
So then just to further clarify, they got caught up in the idea of free because if you are the recipient, aka an insured person, that drug appears to be free or close to free to you.
Yes. So what they did is imagine, let's just say in the old model, let's just say before 1995, roughly. And before 1995, benefit administrators like PBMs would kind of say, hey, I'll charge you 25 cents per script, flat fee to administrate your plan. And that's a reasonable amount of money. But then someone had the bright idea, be it marketing or sales, whatever. And they said, what if we went to the employers and the payers and the feds and we said, it's free. Mm-hmm. There's no more 25 cents per script, but I'm just going to take a little bit in between. Mm. And the country ate up this idea. I mean, the expansion of some of the fastest growing companies in the United States, if you were to literally go back in time and look from 2000 to 2007, some of the fastest growing companies in America are Express Scripts, which is now part of Cigna. It's Caremark, which is now part of CVS. So these companies exploded. Medco, another company, exploded in growth, which was purchased by Express Scripts, which was then in turn purchased by Cigna.
In fact, the two you mentioned, we looked this up, McKesson and AmerisourceBergen are 8 and 9 on the Fortune 500, respectively.
Oh, all of these companies are top 20. So Cigna, top 20, CVS, top 20, and United Healthcare, top 20. So
free is never free.
Free is never free. And then never underestimate what people can try and get away with. So maybe they started out and they said, it's 25 cents. We'll take 35. We'll take 50 cents. We'll take $1. And suddenly they realized nothing could stop them.
Because no one's looking. Literally not paying attention at all. They're just like, we get it for free at the end.
You can't see. And then what they started to do is to structure contracting so no one could see. So the first part of it is retail contracting. So what you do is you say, Mr. or Mrs. Pharmacist, you can never communicate price to the patient at the point of sale. Even if you could sell it at a lower price, I don't want you ever to say anything to my customer. And the retailers sign these agreements because they want access to patients. And they said, wow, these carriers are powerful. Let me sign this. And they lost control of the supply chain early on. I want to say retailers probably lost control of the supply chain in early 2000s. And basically they signed these agreements so a patient could walk in and remember the pharmacist can see especially if they're the owner of the pharmacist or a store manager and they have some understanding of acquisition cost, they can get a sense of the buy and the sell side, which is I'm typing in the insurance and the insurance company is telling me to charge for a Torvastatin $65. And they're probably saying, I'd be willing to do this for $17, but I can't say anything. And so that 25 cents suddenly grew to $5, to $10, to $20. And the optimization, because I do want to make this clear, there's nothing technically illegal about what they're doing. You know, what they're doing is they're publicly traded companies and their fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholders, and they're trying to maximize value within the model that they've created.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is they suddenly said, I did this on retail. What else could I make more money on? And then you look at things like mail order. Be like, what if I made it mandatory mail? So if you have a script that's over 30 days supply, I'm going to say you must go through my mail order. Now, what did I
about that? Yeah.
What did I do in this magic trick? It sounds like, think about it. It's under the guise of, I'm going to do what's right for you. You know, we want patient adherence to be higher. We want to do this. But what they're doing is they're creating the largest pharmacies in the United States. So what's interesting is the largest pharmacies in America by volume aren't necessarily Walgreens or Rite Aid. It's United Healthcare and Express Scripts through Cigna, because they have such huge mail, and which includes specialty drugs, high cost biologics. And so what you're doing is you're forcing utilization to your own pharmacy, which gives you now another way to make money, which is on acquisition cost. Remember, the pharmacy has a markup because they're buying the inventory, but now I can make double spread. I can make spread on my inventory because I am the pharmacy, and I can make spread on my customer. But it doesn't end. You keep going with the game. It
just gets worse. And there we go. We went ahead and put up United Health Group's overall, historical stock chart from the 90s, it looks like.
Yes.
And you see that right in this period you're talking to, early 2000s, all of a sudden everything starts trending great.
Yep.
Nothing but up.
Now, what's interesting, if you were to layer in here on top of this chart, like Merck over the same time frame, or Pfizer, and what you're going to see is what grows faster is not necessarily the pharmaceutical manufacturer. So, as I said, in the history of pharmacy benefits, and not to bore people with this, is it's important to remember what's happening is the PBM went from kind of not that significant member of a supply chain to the all-encompassing and all-powerful controller of the pharmaceutical supply chain. So you start with retail, you add into your power through mail order, you expand through what's just called specialty drugs. These are the highest cost medication. And then you look at pharma and you go, well, pharmaceutical manufacturers, brand manufacturers have all the money. I would like their money.
Right.
And so if you think about the optimization of the traditional PBM model, what's next on the menu is, how do I get to pharma's money? And a really interesting thing happened. We call it the birth of what's known as a formulary. And a formulary kind of maybe was born with the right intent, which is, I would like to select the appropriate medication. My team has gone through, and we have done a survey and an analysis and collected data from the FDA and other area. And we have basically stated that we have determined precisely the right medication for you. Now, I want to pause for a second and think about how implausible this is. I use this example all the time. My sister and I are very close in age. We're genetically similar, but we have very different medication needs, as well as we respond very differently to medication. What are the odds that everyone in the country should respond to the same exact formula?
Right.
It's zero.
It's zero. Especially considering how few women are even tested with respect to, you can get into a whole women's health situation, and me and your sister will be in a real rage about it.
Oh, exactly. And so, I think we would all agree precision medicine is a much better way to go, and we'll eventually steer towards there. But what I'm trying to ground us in is all the ways that you could take advantage of this system to become in control. So what the PBM industry did is they created a formulary. And it started out like, hey, I have a formulary, And to be on my formulary, you provide me rebate dollars. And so what you're creating is kind of a pay-to-play economics scenario. Because what if someone says, well, I don't really want to pay? Oh, well, then you're not on my formulary. Now, when the PBMs were a bit more fragmented, that didn't mean as much. Someone would be like, all right, well, you've got like 8% market share. They've got 15% market share. Not that big of a deal. But I always like to point out of every industry in the United States, the pharmaceutical industry is the greatest gift anyone could ever receive economically. It's an inelastic demand curve. It does not matter what happens with the stock market or interest rates. Drug utilization has held rock steady for 30 years. No other industry could make this claim. In addition, drug prices for brand and specialty only appear to miraculously go up. And then you have what we call the compounding effect of proliferation of specialty. The average cost of drugs is going up due to the introduction of high-cost therapies. And so I'm not here to debate what's right or wrong about our patent system or the price of drugs. What I am trying to have everybody understand for a second is when you have the perfect market, you never have to innovate. I mean, think about the advances we've made in things like construction to real estate to even the finance, e-commerces. There's always been ebbs and flows, and you have to have the reset button, become more efficient, become more competitive. But what if you're in an industry you never have to be competitive? In fact, it rewards you for being slothful. And the more focused you are on profit, the better. So you don't innovate, you consolidate. So simultaneously, if we're looking at the history of the PBM industry, what's going on is, well, the PBM industry is eating itself. And you're seeing hyper consolidation. And they're literally from 2000 up until last month, there have been 30 plus mergers and acquisitions that have created jumbo entities. So you have literally 3 entities. You have Cigna Express Scripts. You have United, which owns Optum. You have CVS, which owns the carcass of Caremark, which they took over. And what this is you have 3 entities, depending upon how you do the math, by utilization or GPO economics, controls anywhere from 75 to 90% of the purchasing power in the country. So this is important because if we go back to my formulary example, in early 2000s, pharma could kind of push back a little bit and be like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to pay your fee. Well, now I knock on your door and I say, I control 30% of the patient utilization in the country. And if you don't pay me to be on my formulary, you're probably going to be fired. Yeah. There's no pushback.
Nice little pharma business you got here.
Well, and this is interesting, is roughly around, by my estimate, 2010, pharma had basically ceded control of the supply chain. That for decades, pharma had basically controlled the US supply chain. And then by 2010, the liberation had happened and the PBMs had finally basically taken control. And what this meant is there was nothing to stop them from making more and more egregious asks. And people would often say, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And in this equation, I want everybody to think. People say, well, drug inflation is running rampant. Well, if someone's knocking on your door, PBMs every year, asking for more money in the form of rebates and manufacturer incentives, how do I pay for it? So you come to me each year and you say, let's say I'm a manufacturer and you're the PBM, Molly, and you knock on my door every year. It's your job to say, I need 10% more.
Yep.
Well, I could take 10% less out of my earnings, or I could raise my price 10%. So a lot of arguments are circular in the sense that pharma will oftentimes point a blameful finger at the PBM industry. The PBM industry will point a blameful finger at pharma. But I want everyone to understand the history here, because what you have is PBMs that are truly in control of the US supply chain. They're in control of everyone, from the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the pharmacies to the hospital systems. Make no mistake, they're in charge. The second thing is we have a system that's based upon price opacity and price encumbrance. Price opacity, as I mentioned, is Nobody can see and understand the buy and sell side, the true and buy sell side of the economics of a prescription. And the other part is this price encumbrance. You have the ability to change the price at your sole discretion under a traditional PBM model to be anything you'd like. That is extraordinarily powerful, and it equates to very big earnings. And so, I want everyone to understand this is how we got here. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a surprise. It took roughly 25, 30 years, and there were different points. But what it left us with is a scenario where literally you can charge anything. So the way I want people to think about this, as I often say, is imagine the US drug system is a casino, and we deal in probability and odds. And if I'm the casino, if we look at the US drug pricing system, our cash marketplace in the United States is about 6%. These are the people that either aren't covered by insurance or are, and they kind of hunt for a better price. But what does that mean? That means 94% of the time, a patient, when they go to a pharmacy, will accept any price I put in front of them. Mm-hmm. And if you own the casino as the PBM, those are great odds.
Right.
And that is so important.
It's funny that you describe it as a casino because, to be honest, it sounds a lot, to be fair, I'm rewatching The Sopranos with my son, but it sounds a lot more like a mob shakedown that maybe started as an attempt at efficiency, right? Like, we don't want to ascribe values to what people were doing. Everybody was trying to make more money, and we've seen things spiral out of control. So I guess let's fast forward to impact and then talk about solutions. What are I think we sort of understand what the impacts are of drug price inflation, but give us the kind of big picture of what the system has led to.
Well, I think it's led to a breaking point. I think you're seeing the FTC announce its investigation of the PBM industry, which is the first time in my recollection that they've done this.
And I have to be honest, I had never heard of this. None of this is stuff that I think people know or understand.
No. And, it's hiding in plain sight. It's at your local pharmacy, and it happens millions of times every day, people filling prescriptions. But they don't understand what caused these economics to become untenable. And I think the impact on the consumer is great. So back to this boiling point, you're seeing state legislation lean in. The state legislators are saying, wait a second, what's going on with these PBMs? Because the retailers are complaining. They're getting squeezed harder and harder by the PBMs. Hospital systems are complaining. Patients are complaining because you're seeing this price change back to when price is encumbered through spread pricing. Price changes every second of every day for every drug. And that's a complete lie. Drug pricing in the United States is incredibly stable. Brand drugs change about twice a year. You can set a clock to it. It's typically January and July. And generic drugs typically deflate depending upon your purchase schedules, which could be monthly or quarterly, depending upon your size and what your routine is. But the point of it is, it certainly isn't changing every hour of every day for every drug. That's artificial price encumbrance. And so the impact, again, is patients are complaining. But for the first time, I think oversight groups, be it HHS, CMS, Department of Labor, recently is announced they're enforcing the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which is a way to kind of measure profitability and reporting by PBMs, as well as brokers and consultants that sell these services, which could be helpful. The FTC is leaning in. So what you're seeing is we hit this boiling point and everyone's complaining about drugs. And I think finally people are kind of recognizing there's not one person in the supply chain truly responsible for these, multiple people, but the outsized kind of role in pharmacy is the PBM. And I think people are starting to understand this.
Gotcha. Well, certainly you do. And so it sounds like what you're also describing is possibly a regulatory, but also an awareness environment that creates room for competition. Enter Capital RX.
Correct. So as I mentioned, I started in pharmaceutical manufacturing. I moved over to the audit and procurement side. So this is reviewing contracts for large self-insured payers. These could be carriers, Fortune 500 companies, even government agencies. And the one thing I realized is none of these people were truly getting what they thought they were getting. And how could you? Again, you have a contract with no drug pricing in it. There are no drug prices. How could I ever kind of figure out what I'm supposed to get? Because it's so complex. We have a very complex classification system of what's the definition of a brand, a generic, a single source, a multi-source, limited supply, DAW handling. And this is done almost to confuse people because everything in the United States has a list price called an NDC 11. And it would be very simple. Just take the NDC 11 and put a price next to it, the same way we price popsicles to lampshades. And so what I saw I often say I was writing a 13-year thesis on where did the drug pricing go. And I finally got to the point and I said, I'm never going to change the way drugs are priced or patients are serviced by auditing the books or helping with a procurement workflow.
Right.
So I think what we wanted to be able to do was, why don't we take a step back and get to the real problem here, which is the person that administrates the benefit has all the control. As I just said, the PBM is in charge of the supply chain. Well, why don't we create a model that we want this to make sense? Let's create a transparent pricing model. Let's create a public ledger of pricing. Let's not push around the pharmacist. Let's pass through 100% of the value, but let's do it and be super competitive. And this is where we started to develop the technology at my organization to compete with the big three. So let me pause. And I know you probably have a host of questions, but I had to get a lot of this out because it's important to ground everybody to just how we got here.
Yeah. You may have seen it go by in our live chat, people were saying, I feel like 99% of Americans could benefit from knowing this information because nobody totally understands how pricing got this way. It's almost everybody's, you blame big pharma, and it turns out that's a whole ecosystem that is working together and, making trillions. How does it work? Like, how are you doing things differently? How are you enabling that transparency? And if you could give us a real world example of sort of like what that might mean for, my mom and insulin prices.
Sure. So the first thing that we wanted to do was you have to kind of have the discipline. You have to have the discipline to what I call to never take the bad money. The bad money is spread pricing on drugs. Because the moment you make money on a marked up prescription, one, I don't think it's right. Because if you think about it, you can't mark up a medical procedure in the United States. I don't know how the heck we got to marking up drugs, but I always said you have to start with the discipline to never take the bad money. So you can't take spread on rebates, you can't take spread on mail or specialty, etc. So we decided to just charge a flat administrative fee. So this could be per member per month flat administrative fee, or it could be a flat per script fee. We let our clients choose. It really doesn't matter. But what we're trying to say is we're performing a very valuable function. When you administrate a plan, you're keeping track of who's eligible, you're setting up the plan design, you're doing the clinical review, the clinical edits, drug utilization, drug-to-drug interaction, you're reimbursing the network on behalf of the payers, you're billing them, etc. You're doing hundreds of what I would say administrative tasks to maintain a benefit. The key is to just always remember that's what your job is, not to be the drug czar of marking up drug prices. And so what we wanted to do is to kind of create what we call our clearinghouse model. And this is this concept of a public ledger. Our office is located in New York City. I say all the time, I walk by the most famous clearinghouse in the world, which is the New York Stock Exchange. And it lets the buy and sell side freely communicate on pricing. Molly, you would like to buy $100 worth of IBM. I would like to sell you $100 of IBM. We are communicating freely on price. This does not exist in prescription benefits. And so we wanted to do this. And to do it, we also wanted to never be in a position where we manipulate or set price. So we chose for our pricing benchmark, we use NADAC, National Average Drug Acquisition Cost. You're like, what is this NADAC thing? It comes from the federal government. The federal government uses it in Medicaid reimbursement in 40 plus states. And we like this because CMS controls it, the federal government. They set it, they update it every week. And what it's doing is I'm saying, I have nothing to do with price. I'm giving a benchmark for our retail pharmacies. So we go out and contract with all the major national network of pharmacies, the independents, the PSAOs. And basically we say, we would like you to either sell the drug at NADAC plus your dispensing fee, Or if you could do a better job, feel free to do it. Now, this is where trust comes in. There hasn't been trust in the pharmacy supply chain in 30 years because if I'm a pharmacy and I normally give savings to a traditional PBM, they're going to keep the money. It's never going to make it to the patient or plan, or a disproportionate part. And so pharmacies are very hesitant to offer a better price. So we decided to do something very unique, which is we don't set price. We give you the ability, the pharmacy, better than benchmark, NADAC. If you would like to set a better price, please do. And the patient will always receive it. And the way that we prove that is all of our customers get the same price. Now, that seems like a pretty, that seems normal, right? Shouldn't everyone get the same price?
Popsicles and lampshades. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, think about it. You walk into a pharmacy and you go to the OTC counter and you pick up a bottle of Tylenol. Doesn't matter if you're insured or uninsured. Doesn't matter if you work for the biggest employer or the smallest. It's the same price, correct? And it will be the same price for months on end until the manufacturer says, I'm going to increase or decrease price based upon supply and demand, real market forces. That's not how prescriptions work.
Right.
So you go 50 feet back to the register, to the prescription counter, and the price changes every second of every day. It's like spinning a roulette wheel. Am I today's winner or loser?
Which, to be fair, is not unlike the stock market, but shouldn't be that way.
No, but at least with the stock market, you can see the buy and sell side.
True. Yeah.
Neither one can see the true price. And even if the pharmacy is willing to communicate a better price, contractually, they can't.
Right.
They've
so you're saying, so the difference is you're saying these are the prices. A, one big innovation. Here's how much it costs. B, we will not require you to charge a higher price if a lower price is available. And then C, the consumer will in fact know what the price is. Agreed.
And what's interesting is because we use NADAC pricing, there's no massive price swings. So I often say if someone's filling a atorvastatin, let's just say in Washington State or in Florida or in New Hampshire or in Arizona, it's the same price until the price is changed by CMS. Or to be fair to the retailer, they could say, hey, I've got $4 generics. I'm Walmart, or I'm Albertsons. I have $0 amoxicillin. I have specials on things. That's awesome. Let that value get to the end patient in the plan. And so to do this, we had to reimagine how claims are processed in patient service. So we had to write our own technology from the ground up. And this is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, when you have the perfect market, there's no need for innovation. And to be clear, my competitors scaled with people. And they never really invested in technology. Their technology is 20 or 30 years old, depending upon which software platform it is. And you'd be like, well, is software that important? I said, yes. Think about any major operational system. I mean, imagine going to someone like Walmart or Amazon and saying you have no software for your supply chain logistics and operations. They would be like, I can't even do my job. There was no investment in workflow management and workflow automation because think about it, the highest cost against drugs are the people and how cheaply you could administrate a plan. And I always say there are two lines in healthcare. There's your top line, which is gross margin. And I will say this very clearly. My company does not purchase drugs cheaper than the largest entities in the pharmacy supply chain. But there's another line that's equal or in greater importance, which is what is your cost? What is your net margin? And so this is your administrative cost. So we built our own technology platform, Judy. Judy's short for adjudication. And she is the brains behind our organization because everything runs on Judy. And we had this hypothesis, which is if we could create workflow automation and make our organization 70, 80% more efficient than my competitors, not only could I close the gap in their pricing advantage, I could beat them. I could offer cheaper prices. And more importantly, I would never be forced to take what I felt was the bad money, the money based upon spread.
Well, and this is a really important point because when you first talked about not taking the bad money, my investor brain went, hey, I hear you leaving money on the table. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that you've automated this process enough. You've introduced enough technology that your margins will make up for not taking the bad money. Like you believe that you'll be able to make the same amount of money by also introducing price transparency and maybe having, hopefully, it sounds like a downstream positive benefit on the industry.
Oh, well, absolutely. And so, I always go to the metrics that matter. So we're a customer first organization. So some people would say, well, you're leveraging all this technology, does that
let me interject there. Who is the customer? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the customer that buys our services is an employer group, typically 500 employees or more. So in the United States, when you hit 500 employees or more, you become self-insured. That means you're taking on the risk. I don't need a risk taker or carrier to cover my risk. I can pay for my own bills. And so the employers, they're also municipalities. They're also union groups, hospitals, health systems. So anyone who has a benefit to be administrated, we can provide a solution for. We can also power the back end for regional carriers and health plans, again, so we can be that administrative platform. But the main buyer for you to think about is any large employer in the United States. We're providing this administrative service.
Gotcha. Okay. So how do you hope that, or do you hope that the healthcare landscape will change overall? I'm imagining that this is a little bit like Robinhood, which came along and offered free, stock trading. And then all of a sudden everybody had to do that. Like, do you believe that you will have that transformative and impact on the industry? Do you even want to, or is this your competitive advantage forever?
No, I hope everyone does. I think the industry needs to think this way, and I use Robinhood quite a bit. If you think about it, once upon a time, to make a stock trade in the 90s, I believe the rule is you could keep 10% of the value of the trade. It almost sounds criminal. People used to charge hundreds of dollars for a stock trade, and then companies like E-Trade and Ameritrade said, I'll do it for $59.95 and $19.95 and $9.95. And then Robinhood comes along and says, I'll do it for $0.
Yeah.
And then in my Chase account, they'll do it for $0 because you're setting the market for what the true administrative fee should be. And so I do believe exactly as you're saying is you're going to expose what the real price and value is to administrate a plan on behalf of a self-insured entity. And that will settle itself based upon the services and what the market can bear. So I completely agree with your example. I hope everybody gets here. It's our advantage today, but I believe that others will understand the importance of this. And I hope many of them use our technology to get there. I would like nothing more than to liberate drug prices on behalf of the US consumer.
Yeah, us too. And then talk to me about the sales pipeline. How hard is it for your customers to switch?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, switching is very easy. This is our calling card because we have a modern technology platform. So my competitors take months to set up a new plan, and it's a real headache. But if you were to speak to any of my customers, we literally plow through this in hours to set up a new plan because we have a natural language framework, which enables my people to very easily set up a new plan design and benefit and do the interoperability and the integration. Not to bore you with the details, but we connect to a lot of different things, including the carrier for accumulators and eligibility feeds. But the whole point of it is it's a seamless process that's very easy to do and to switch. And this helps quite a bit. But I think what you're trying to get to, and part of the question is, how hard is it to convince someone to move to someone like us? And so we've been around now.
You've described a pretty, well integrated mob operation. And sometimes those can be a little hard to disrupt without ending up in a barrel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, completely agree. But part of it is I often say there are no shortcuts in healthcare. So if anyone says, hey, my sister is a bigwig executive at this Fortune 500 company, and they're just going to move their business to us, I'm like, I've never seen that, because normally someone is going to say, well, wait a second, how many 200,000 life accounts do you have? And if you're new to the business, your answer is going to be 0. And they're going to be like, hit the road. So, no one has a tolerance for risk when it comes to benefits. So what I say is there's no shortcuts in healthcare. So we've been at this for 4.5 years. And what I often say is I never want to go back. I never want to go back and sell 4 years ago because it's miserable. Think about it, Molly. You're my customer and I'm trying to convince you. And I say, hey, here's the reason why you should use Capital RX. The first question is going to be like, well, how many other customers do you have? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be like, including you? And you're going to be like, oh, that's very cute. And they're like, how long have you been in business for? And you're going to be like, including this month?
Right.
And you're going to be like, are you trying not to get the sale? But I'm trying to be honest. But my point is, you start by selling 500 life cases to get to 1,000 life cases, to 2,000, to 4 and 8 and 16. And I make this point all the time because I want people to understand there are no shortcuts in healthcare. You build upon your trust score. So if I've been scored to service 10,000 life cases, yeah, I might be able to sell a 20,000 life case, but I'm not selling a 200,000 life case anytime soon. And this is what we had to build upon. And also, if you think about it, statistically speaking, as I stated earlier, depending upon your accounting for market control, the big three, Cigna, United, and CVS control 80% of the self-insured marketplace. So 80% of the time, I've got to displace a Fortune 20 company.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's never easy, but it gets easier each year. And part of it is because our performance and our track record. But it's also, I give a huge amount of thanks to my customers. They're our best sellers. My best brand ambassadors, hands down, are my customers. I have more sales from my customers talking to other people, be it at conferences, at just get-togethers, people knowing people in industry. HR people are pretty tight. Mm-hmm. And they'll just say, oh my goodness, I'm having the best experience with Capital RX. You should speak to them. And I think that goes back to that trust and strength of your brand.
And timing, right? Timing matters. You're doing this at this moment when, as you described earlier, this conversation is really increasing. I also want to ask you how, if at all, because there's also been news about drug prices specifically around like Mark Cuban's new company, Cost Plus Pharmacy. How does this interact with that, if at all, or how could it? And is it part of this ecosystem of like, let's upend this?
Yeah. So if you think about it, my competitors create walls. They only want to direct drug spend to their channels, especially when it comes to like delivery or home delivery, like Mark Cuban Cost Plus. Mm-hmm. We have the opposite model. So we're agnostic in our network. So I'll take anyone in our network. Remember, my job is to administrate and find the best price and the best service. So why wouldn't I want Mark's company to give me inventory and price?
Right.
And the answer is yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's the same, not just Mark, but anyone. And I want to make this clear. It's at retail. We allow any pharmacy in our network, as long as obviously they're in compliance and in good standing with the state. I always want to make that point of that. But I think the other part of it is, I don't care if you have a mail channel. I'm saying, give me a price list and I'll post it. And if people want to use your services because you're offering a lower price, fantastic. That's the way the market should be. If I'm truly an administrator, what I want to do is help my client and their patients find the lowest price and bridge that and communicate to them. So yes, the answer is, I applaud anyone like Mark and others that have mail and delivery services that have figured out ways through partnerships and direct contracting to provide lower drug prices to the US public. I am all for it because remember, I don't make any money on fulfillment. This is what makes me very different in our organization from our competitors. We do not make money on the filling of a prescription or the spread pricing or the acquisition cost or the rebating or anything around that. So it makes it very easy for us to make partnerships and direct people to the appropriate channel.
And then last question, do you think, when we look at seemingly intractable problems like this, I'm a climate tech investor, so I, am acutely aware of this. Do you think that disruption and competition ultimately are going to have more impact than these sort of slow walk regulatory moves, or do they have to go hand in hand?
I've personally never built a business plan or model around federal intervention or oversight. So I genuinely always believe in innovation and competition driving a market. I do believe it's important for the federal government to lean in and review many of these rules and practices that have kind of emerged over 20 years. Not necessarily for myself in competition, but who's the largest payer in the country? It's the federal government. For Medicare, Medicaid, 340B, DOD, VA, take their pick. They buy billions of dollars of drugs. I would like my federal government to, one, get a fair price because they're not. It's by their own omission, and so if you look at the COB report from February of 2021, it compares net drug prices across things like DOD, VA, Medicare, Medicaid, 340B. And it's not like really tight, like, oh, well, we have, the best price in the United States, and that's what we've negotiated for all of my billing. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
There's a delta on net cost of up to 150%. So I often joke, if the federal government can't get it right, what chance does the average patient? And so I do believe that leaning in on a regulatory standpoint and reviewing things are healthy. But I do believe innovation is the only way, and through fair competition, it's the only way the industry is truly going to make a monumental leap in the private sector space.
AJ Loiacono is CEO of Capital RX. Thanks for fighting the good fight. Good luck.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly.
Good luck with the mob. I know I'm watching a lot of Sopranos, but
I'm from Jersey. It's okay.
We'll be looking out for you.
What a great interview. Well done again, Molly Wood.
Thanks, man. And thanks to Lon for coming on, talking about streaming with us. And tomorrow, we'll have a great interview. Jason is going to be talking to Praying for Exits, the anonymous VC satirical account that, as with all satire, is often quite on the nose.
Yeah, pretty poignant stuff. And then we'll have another OK Boomer segment from producer Rachel, reporting live from the disastrous NFT NYC. See you
Doesn't
tomorrow.
seem like such a disaster. Rachel's having a lot of fun.
Is she living her best life again? She's living my best life again.
She's living your best life. We'll see you tomorrow.
I can't go. This weekend start. I can't go. You can't go.
We're busy. Daily show. We're tied to this desk every day.
But Rachel's out there. She's like living our best life. Wow, way to go. Good job, Rachel. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Bye.